Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. And today's question that we are going to answer is which types should avoid getting tattoos? I think this is a very silly question, but I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. There's a ton of factors when it comes to considering tattoos, namely the consequences of the tattoos. But one thing that I have noticed missing from the typosphere or the MBTI blogosphere or anyone talking on YouTube or whatever podcasts relating to Jungian analytical psychology, I haven't really seen anybody spend much time discussing tattoos and what they're all about and why people do get tattoos and which types should avoid tattoos. So this is going to be somewhat of a complex answer with a simple premise. So let's get started with the premise. So why do people even get tattoos to begin with? So let's talk about extroverted sensors. Extroverted sensors are all about totemic memory. That means they use physical objects to provide them reminders of things. It's like a form of psychometry. It is psychometry, actually, where they pick up a physical object and they are reminded of everywhere the physical object has been, where it is, that kind of thing. It's one of the reasons why lust types, also known as Soul Temple Templars, ESTPs, and INFJs, their aspiration pole is the pole of objectification because they have an almost entirely totemic memory, basically. Their memory is based on memory totems entirely, and that's one of the reasons why they struggle so much with memory access, because if you take away their totems, they literally can't remember anything, and it's really frustrating. It also makes it very easy for them to erase people from their lives because they just delete all the photos or any reminder or get rid of any physical object that would remind me of the person, and then they can forget afterwards. That's why I really enjoy messing with those people and sticking physical objects around them that do remind them of people in their past, people that particularly trigger them. My extroverted sensing demon gets a huge kick from doing this to Soul Temple Templars. I draw so much joy from torturing these people in this way, of course. With that, extroverted sensors, they get tattoos basically to remind them of good times or bad times. I don't know how many times I see extroverted sensors, especially women, have like little rest in peace memorials towards children that have died and like dates, etc., or put names of their children that never made it to full birth or were stillborn, etc. They often are wearing their tattoos like memorials. Tattoos to an extroverted sensor is a memorial. It could be, like, for example, my ex-wife, she has an eclipse-based tattoo of when her and her now husband went to go view the big solar eclipse a few years back in North America, and they drove all the way up to Oregon to do so. So that entire experience, she didn't want to forget it, so she had a tattoo created, and it's on her back, basically, to commemorate that trip, basically, with her now husband. So yeah, like again, that's typically why extroverted sensors get tattoos. It's literally just memory totems, memorials to commemorate some kind of memory so that they do not forget it, basically. Another reason also maybe is just to like do something fun and artistic, but for the most part, the tattoos serve as artistic reminders of times in the past, be it good or bad. It doesn't matter, but that's ultimately why an extroverted sensor gets a tattoo. Now, extrovert intuitive users, also known as SI users, they get tattoos for a completely different reason, and that reason is for representation and symbology for the purpose of meaning. They basically will cover their body in tattoos, and those tattoos ultimately are symbols that carry hidden meanings, basically. It's like the same reason why you'd see an ENFP wearing a Nike logo or have or wear designer clothing with seeable logos, basically, because they're trying to represent something. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to tattoos with expert intuitives, because expert intuition is the function that is related to symbology or symbols or hidden meanings, and they end up getting tattoos that convey a hidden meaning of some kind. And when you are around an NE user who has tattoos, and then people in their life are actually able to interpret the hidden meaning of those tattoos, it often leads to a very high amount of attraction that the NE user has to the SE user who actually is able to interpret those meanings. So that's pretty fantastic if you think about it. Um, so yeah, it's all about just covering their body in symbols and symbols with hidden meanings, and then trying to interpret what those hidden meanings actually mean. That is why an SI user or an NE user, because they're the same, would actually get a tattoo. So that represents the premise of the foundation as to why people get tattoos in the first place, right there. It's all about perception functions. It's not really about judgment functions at all. It's perception functions. Extroverted sensors do it for their totemic memory, and expert intuitive users do it for the purpose of conveying hidden meaning, ultimately, right? So, but the next question that one would probably ask related to this is like, well, which types typically get tattoos? And ultimately, any and all types get tattoos. There are some types that get tattoos the most. I would say ENFPs probably get the tattoos the most out of everybody, followed by ISFPs. ISFPs because they're very artistic in nature, and then also ISTPs. Extroverted sensing parents are really big on tattoos. And then also, in my opinion, extroverted sensing pessimistic in general are also really big on tattoos. And ENFPs are extroverted sensing pessimistic because their extroverted sensing is a demon function. It is naturally pessimistic. So I've noticed SE pessimistics are the people who end up having tattoos the most. And extroverted sensing optimistics end up having tattoos the least. That's not to say that they do not still get tattoos. Now, if they're extroverted sensing optimistic, but also pragmatic at the same time, they're more likely to get tattoos as well. Now, I have said in the past that a person that has tattoos is more than likely pragmatic, but given that ENFPs who are actually affiliative end up having the most tattoos out of all of the 16 types, I no longer have that position. So this would basically be me issuing a retraction right now. I no longer have that belief. After getting a lot more life experience and anecdotal evidence when it comes to tattoos, this is basically my current thinking right now. Now, types that are kind of disgusted by other people having tattoos, that is an interesting concept. Now, I can't say for sure that this is actually an issue from a type perspective. I think this is actually an octagram perspective. For example, I've had a few INTJXs in my life who all of them refused to allow me to get tattoos. They wouldn't have anything to do with it, while they themselves actually did have tattoos. So it was kind of interesting. And yeah, you could argue that they're being hypocritical, but the thing is that you guys just don't understand sexual relationships, because sexual relationships, within the relationship, people end up having their own castle, their own throne that they sit on, and each throne has different things, and they're very complementary. I really loathe when people are in relationships and they end up using the excuse of, well, you did it, so I get to do it too. And I'm like, okay, so other people's behavior is your main justification for your own behavior. Why can't you actually be an original person or actually take any responsibility for some reason? Well, most people can't, and at least those people that do that, and the types that do that the most are actually lust types. ESTPs and INFJs do that the most, which is really frustrating. And that would be one of the reasons why I would shy away from lust types, is literally that. I literally hate it when they use other people's behavior as justification for their own behavior, positive or negative. It really pisses me off. I have no patience for that. So, but ultimately, like, all types could get tattoos, but I think, what motivates them to get tattoos is literally their nurture more so than their nature. And if they end up deciding to get a tattoo, it would fit the model of SE users do it for memory totems, and as an NE users do it for symbols that convey hidden meaning. Okay, so that's why they get tattoos. Well, that's how they get tattoos, I guess. But the why is based on ultimately their nurture, and if they're subconscious developed versus unconscious developed, whether or not that fits between their ego and whether or not, and where their development is, that could potentially get them a tattoo. But then also cognitive focus comes into play when you consider life crises, quarter life crisis, midlife crisis, especially, can also lead to tattoos. I used to, like my ENTJX, for example. Uh, she didn't have any tattoos when we were lovers, and then after multiple suicidal attempts, after she broke her back and basically had lost her purpose in her life because her cognitive origin is purpose, she ended up going to midlife crisis, went hardcore into her ISFP subconscious because she was subconscious developed essentially, and she just went right to her development hardcore. And then she became a tattoo artist in a tattoo shop after that. And okay, yeah, sure, makes a lot of sense, from that perspective. But yeah, ultimately, like, what can I say about which types should avoid tattoos? Well, let me go a little bit further. Let's actually examine the consequences of getting tattoos. I'm SI inferior, and SI inferior, especially SI inferior, out of all of the 16 types, really knows what grosses it out. And out of all the 16 types, the one type that ends up appreciating and understanding art the most is actually the ENTP archetype, which is my ego. That is my nature. I am an ENTP. So when it comes to tattoos, I am extremely critical towards tattoos, and I can find tattoos to be very elegant, very beautiful. I can also find them entirely disgusting. Here's an example of them being disgusting. Can you imagine yourself being elderly and having a tattoo? Like, let's be honest, there's nothing grosser than seeing an elderly person with a tattoo. And I'm not trying to bag on elderly people, but like it just kind of is. And it's so interesting to me because a lot of elderly folk actually elect to end up having surgery to remove their tattoos after a while, which I find very fascinating. But I'm sure most of us can all agree that an elderly person with a very colorful tattoo or very grayed out tattoo over time is just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's not really attractive. Who wants that? That kind of a thing. So, like, that's just like a basic non-nature, non-neutral example. That's just, hey, I'm just being grossed out by those people naturally. It's not like I'm trying to discriminate against them. It's more of just like, I don't like it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Not really my thing, And so, but that kind of visceral reaction, I've noticed that, like INTJ women in my life has also been like, okay, you can't get tattoos, you shouldn't get tattoos, and they're all very opinionated, but some of their opinions really matter. Like, for example, all of them can't stand me having like a really long beard, for example, because they don't want to like be kissing this giant bush. You know what I'm saying? So they always want me to keep my beard short from that perspective, and that's also fascinating as well. Uh, but really, at the end of the day, like, why does this matter? Why? Like, at the end of the day, like, S users have their method, NE users have their method for like why they get tattoos or how they get tattoos for themselves. But like all types should get tattoos. But to answer the question, which types should avoid tattoos? Well, it really just depends. It depends. Like if you're a woman and you're getting a tattoo, it depends if the man you're with is okay with you having a tattoo, or if you are planning on being with a high value man one day, what would that man think, right? Like, you're making a huge commitment there, and I maintain like it's better to be safe than sorry, but I'm kind of biased because I'm an ENTP. I have ISFJ subconscious, and even though my ISFJ subconscious is severely underdeveloped because I have an unconscious developed unconscious focused octogram. Uh, you really have to take what I'm saying here for a grain of salt, but like, you know, just stick with what God gave you is probably the safest bet in the long term. But if you really, really, really want to get a tattoo, go ahead and get one. I mean, there's enough people under the sun that some people would actually appreciate your tattoos or love your tattoos. And as much as there's just about probably the same amount of people who would loathe or hate your tattoos as well. I particularly enjoy tattoos, especially tattoos on my women. I particularly enjoy them, but they have to be very artistic. They have to be like something that has some kind of meaning, like they actually tried. I'm so tired of hearing about STP women, for example, walking into a tattoo parlor and just choosing something out of the book because it's like, hey, I got a tattoo for the sake of getting a tattoo. And it's just like, wow, I just want to slap them because I'm like, wow, really? Really? You just want to get a tattoo for the sake of tattoo. You don't actually like understand or care have or like even know what you want. Oh my God, SE heroes do that constantly. I'm very thankful, for example, that Railgun never made that mistake. She didn't even allow her friends to peer pressure her into that. Because the reality is, if you're going to get like some kind of lifelong commitment, like a tattoo, you better actually put some effort into it. So all the SE heroes and maybe even the SE childs out there, because SE heroes and SE child definitely have this problem where they just walk into a tattoo parlor having no idea what they want, and then they have to choose something out of the binder, and I'm just like, y'all just piss me off. And I know a few ISTPs that do that as well. It's just gross to me how people would just disrespect themselves and also disrespect their current sexual partner or their future sexual partners by making that decision for everybody. Really pisses me off. And it's just like, wow, okay, are you actually gonna like get some input? Are you actually gonna get some feedback? What are you actually gonna do? Like, are you gonna get some output from somebody? What would other people think? Like now, granted, ultimately, I'm all about freedom of choice. Y'all can do whatever you want. You can go get whatever tattoo you want. It's your life. Do whatever you want. And I am fine with that. All I'm saying is consider the consequences when you're like 70 years old in an old folks home potentially, or 75 years old or 80 years old. Like, consider the consequences. Like, seriously, understand where it's at, and obviously there's tons of stories out there that have like, very bad situations. Like I remember the famous tattoo on the show Nip Tuck, property of Christian Troy, for example, Christian Troy being an ENTP in that story. And it's just like, wow, okay, do we really want to deal with something like that? I mean, come on. But of course, it's the SPs who make that decision because SPs have no awareness or they choose to not be aware of the consequences of their actions, right? And those should be the types that should avoid tattoos. People with lack of consequential awareness. So I would say this would be the NE tricksters and the NE demons probably should avoid tattoos the most. This is just an opinion of mine. It's not me telling the truth. This is just an opinion here. This is not factual. This is just opinion. Okay. Um, NE Nemesis and above. I mean, you guys can choose tattoos appropriately, I think, pretty well. NE Critic, I don't know. I've had so many bad experiences with ENJs just screwing it up. But I don't know. I mean, I'm open to it, but again, this is just my personal preference here. Y'all can do what you want. Like I said, at the end of the day, expert censors do it for commemoration or a memorial of some kind or memoriam of some kind, whereas expert intuitives do it for conveying a hidden meaning through symbols that matter to them. That's literally the only reason these people get tattoos is to do that. So is that really worth a lifetime commitment or is it not? I mean, it's up to you guys. Granted, I'll be getting some tattoos in the near future, but they are very important to me personally, very important, and we'll be making those decisions accordingly, right? And I am, fully aware of the consequences, especially through NI Nemesis and Expert Intuition Hero on Cognitive Orbit, in terms of what it's going to look like if I actually do make it to 80 plus years of age and those kinds of things, because that matters to me, right? My INTJ unconscious is shallow enough to actually be aware of those consequences or care about those consequences, I guess, is more of what I'm saying. So. But yeah, folks, like just keep that in mind. Also, like if you want a question answered by me, become an Acolyte member, csjoseph.life/members, become a journeyman, then upgrade to your account to Acolyte there, or go to csjoseph.life/portal if you already are a journeyman member and access the Acolyte section and then upgrade your account from there as well. If you're already a journeyman member, you get one question per month to ask me, and I will turn it into a YouTube video and or a podcast episode so that we all can learn together. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.